supposedly the story is, because his father was a dispatcher. He then did what he's supposed to do. He called the military. Well, they taped it all off, secured the area. And I guess by morning time, people were shocked. It was repaved or re-blacktopped in the middle of the night. And, I did go back, and at that time, because it's going back a year ago since he was on, I did verify with the local library there. They did have a story in that time frame of a UFO landing in this hospital parking lot. But what really made it strange, the next day, 30 some miles away, there was a lake. And in this lake, there was witnesses around that claimed they saw a UFO come out of the lake. And I just wondered, maybe this UFO had a malfunction from overheating, whatever, touched down for a minute, then took off, and then found the lake 30 miles away, went in underwater, to do whatever they did. And then in the morning, to cool off. That's what I've been told by some scientists. And then they took off, and people saw it leave the lake.
Yeah, there's a lot of sightings of interactions between UFOs and water.
Oh, yeah.
And I was told of a case, way back in 1990, I was told by a former Russian submarine captain. We both happened to be at a UFO conference in Hokkaido, Japan. And he told me about this case that occurred in the Pacific Ocean near Vladivostok somewhere. He knew the guy who was the captain of the sub, and how they were traveling along, minding their own business at some depth, whatever would be a normal travel depth, and became aware of something that was pacing them alongside at some distance. And he said, the captain said that he went into a zigzag motion to shake what he assumed was a American sub, and the unknown was mirroring his motion, and he got pissed off and decided to go up and interact directly with this American sub captain. So he takes the sub up to the top, gets out onto the conning tower, looking around to see where this other thing might come up, and he says, this big disc-like object comes up out of the water, shakes somewhat like it's shaking water off, and then zips off into the upper atmosphere someplace. And of course, the Russian sub guy was floored at what he saw, but he entered it into the Russian literature of UFOs and water.
Yeah, that would be kind of eerie. And then there's also been report, of Navy sailors seeing, a bright light, under the water, following ships and stuff. So, I mean, I
know of a story, this guy, Ed Walters, who became famous in Gulf Breeze, told me a story about how he went in the 70s sometime. I don't remember exactly what the date was that he would have put this at, but somewhere in the 70s, later 70s, I guess. He was fishing in a lake in Texas. He was the only person there in a boat fishing. And he said, and this is daytime, perhaps cloudy, I don't know whether the sun was shining or not, but he noticed this light underneath. And this light seemed to be pacing him. And he was rowing, I guess. And he said it made him angry that this light wouldn't go away, so he started hitting at it with an oar. And the next thing he knows, he sort of wakes up, and he's lying on the floor of the boat. Now that's an interesting. We assume it was some sort of a UFO that he interacted with, and whatever. But that's pretty weird.
Yeah,
I don't think I would have tried hitting something that was glowing underwater, hitting it with an oar.
Well, I think a rational person, Bruce, if they in a boat, especially a rowboat, small, right? You see this big lit object, like underneath you. The first thing I would be doing is trying to get to the shore as fast as I can, because there's no way anything like that would be underneath in the water. Yeah, I don't know. Hey, Bruce, I want to thank you for coming on. Everybody, check out his books on Amazon. Again, before we get out, list your 3 books again for people can, order it on Amazon.
Okay. The FBI CIA UFO connection is the widest, the longest history book. Then one sighting, the Kenneth Arnold sighting, and how this all began. 3 minutes in June, the sighting that changed the world. And then for 1952, the legacy of 1952, the year of the UFO, sort of explains how we got to where we are with no disclosure. Basically, the Air Force established a policy of no disclosure under any circumstances.
Oh, yeah. You know, that Mount Rainier thing really opened up a lot of people's eyes. You know, Mount Adams is still a hot spot, supposedly, for UFOs. And
so I've heard.
I will say this before we go. One of my former hosts on my network went there last August, and, you know, to film, you know, strange things in the night, you know, in the sky. And they saw a, like, object, you know, giving off weird lights, come towards them, kind of stop for a minute, and what they claim. Now, I interviewed a couple people that was there on that night at that campsite. They said they like a laser light, you know, shined down, and then the thing took off. Now, a couple things happened really strange. It was really cold that night, so some of the people, you know, couldn't sleep in their tent. It was too cold. They went to their car to sleep. Michael W. Hall, again, he was a pro tem Superior Court judge. He's a practicing lawyer in the state of Washington. At 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, his sleep path machine quit working. So his friend said, okay, I'll swap batteries. So he went out. They had a makeshift, you know, porta potty right next to the camper trailer outside. He went out there for what we would do for like 1 minute at the most, okay? He comes back and his friend says, where you been? And he goes, well, I just went out to, you know, use the bathroom. He goes, well, you've been gone over an hour.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that was strange. Now, he also wore a watch that is one of these watches that, you know, that glow in the, you know, has phosphorus coating. It glows, you know, at night, but it only holds the charge so long before it fades out. Now, it was faded out while he was sleeping. He was not in any bright light. He said it was glowing really bright. Now, it's strange. He lost like an hour, unaccountable. I mean, to go urinate, you know, right? You don't lose an hour. Then the next morning, one of the guys noticed with their compass that it was going crazy next to this car. Now, this car is like 2 years old. And so all the people in the group got out their compasses and whatever. It was going crazy. So they moved the car from the area thinking, well, maybe it's the ground. It was not magnetized, you know, on the ground, only the car. The car became a magnet. And that all happened that strange night. And you know, and then he also had, and I think he's scared to do anything about it, to go check. I know he's been regressed about it, but he had metal tip boots. And I had him go check his boots. And I said, okay, will you do me a favor? Do you have your compass available? And he went and got a compass. Okay, his right boot, nothing. His left boot was magnetized.
Huh.
So I don't...
I would expect if it were iron or steel, he'd get an effect with the compass on both boots.
No, it's only the one boot. And then he also woke up on his, you know, he had like in the morning a little triangle of dots on his wrist, which he couldn't figure out how that got there. But the thing is, the guy who owned the car all of a sudden was magnetized. He takes it to the dealer, and the dealer starts going, wow, we've never seen this before. So they started go out and checking cars, you know, new cars and used cars on the lot. None of them was magnetized. But this guy's car seemed, for a couple of weeks after that, seemed to get more magnetized. And I don't know what happened since then because I haven't, you know, kept up with it. But it was really strange that night. They saw that thing in the sky. You know, all of a sudden, you know, his CPAP machine quits working. He goes out to urinate. You know, all of a sudden he loses an hour's time. A lot of weird things would go. And that was Mount Adams.
Mm-hmm. I forget the name of the guy who has the installation there.
Yeah, that's where they were at.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's strange things going on all the time. So maybe down the road, Bruce, before me and you pass on, and I hope it's before we pass on, we get a little bit more disclosure. You know, I've been, like I said, I've been doing this off and on since 1976. I would like to see something on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been doing it since 1966, 68, 69, somewhere around in there.
Oh yeah.
And at 76, I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen disclosure yet either.
Yeah.
Although I've often said that disclosure has happened. It's just that we don't realize it.
I think it happened when Armstrong on the moon said, "Hey, look at on the medical channel," and they try to get him to switch off. When he started, remember he's saying, "Hey, look at those craft; they're bigger than anything we have."
The big ones or something like that. Right?
Yeah. So either he was insane at that moment, or he actually saw something, and I think that was the disclosure right there.
I talked to Edgar Mitchell, the sixth guy on the moon, and he said he believed in UFOs, but because of information that he got from people he knew on the Earth, not because of something that happened on the moon.
Okay. Interesting. Well, hey, Bruce, I want to thank you for coming on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and, maybe in a few months I can get you back on, maybe.
Yeah, it could be. Something might have happened by then.
Yeah, well, maybe disclosure or something. Or maybe we'll have a crashed UFO come down or whatever. Hey,
I'm not holding my breath.
No, I think we'd pass out by then. Well, sir, I want to thank you for coming on my show.
Thanks for inviting me. It's been enjoyable.
Okay, sir. You take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay, bye. So, you know what? I don't know. On disclosure, again, there's so much talk about it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I've been hearing about it now heavy for months. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if it's already what it was seen with the Air Force or the Navy talking about. They're going to really take it seriously, report that pilots can report sightings of UFOs and they won't get reprimanded. And maybe that's a sign of something that's going on. Maybe that was a big disclosure talk. I don't know. Well, anyway, tomorrow we're going to have a great show. We always have a good show. Well, except for the other night. Tomorrow I got Liz is gone on, as she's going to be talking about her monster books. Then we have on Friday R.W. Wells on. I think you need to tune in on that show. Then on the 6th, we got Jason Offutt talking about, monsters again in his new book. And then next week, we got Susan Shepard going to be talking about Mothman. And then we got Karen Banks, who's going to be talking about, all this weird stuff. Near where she lives, that the, I think, hospital, VA type hospital, threw out back many years ago in like a lake or a pond, and she's recovering all this interesting stuff, military objects and stuff like that. She's going to be talking about that. And then we're going to get back into UFOs and abduction cases coming back on the show pretty much the rest of the month. I do have to say we have Mark Cushman coming back on. Now, if you're wondering who Mark Cushman was, we had a huge listenership when he was on. He wrote a couple scripts for Star Trek. He wrote a book for Roddenberry that it was, done with the permission. He managed to get a whole bunch of information about why the original Star Trek was canceled. No, it wasn't canceled because of the ratings. They had high ratings. It was because the show, Roddenberry, kept going on about the Vietnam War or interracial type things. And the network finally said, we're not going to do it anymore. And that's how that show went bye-bye. He also wrote a book about, the Next Generation. He actually even wrote scripts for the Next Generation. Also, we're going to talk more about I Spy. If it wasn't for I Spy, regardless what happened to Bill,